And this is G.
Welcome back to Dead Rising 4.
You bitches.
Having a lot of fun. Collecting shit. It's all gonna be useful in the long run, I promise.
Yep, for sure.
We're gonna upgrade Frank to fucking epic proportions. We can probably upgrade him a lot now.
Fortitude. Let's increase our health even more.
Oh, we can?
Yeah,
we're shit, we're level 70 now. Shit. Nice.
Let's heal past the base maximum health. Surplus health slowly deletes over time.
Sure.
That health regeneration now heals up to a higher value. Sure. Could increase stamina. What are the other ones? Shooting.
Increased ammo capacity.
Increase carrying weight. Sure. I'd love to.
Nice and nice. We could also do shit with our handguns.
Carry more melee weapons.
Yes, please.
Yes. Carry more food.
Yes,
Why
please. Not? That's 3 more. Breaking destructible objects in the world gives you money, I guess.
Even more PP. Always good to get that early.
Hell yeah.
Sneak kills. We don't sneak in this game.
But hell, we'll probably end up getting it anyway.
We'll get him eventually.
Yeah. Let's get what we need. Oh, we could do car durability.
We got 3 left.
Yeah.
Let's do something else. Let's increase the damage of elements.
Yeah. And that's all.
Dude, we are so fucking strong right now, dude. This is just absurd.
Well, make sure you stock
Look at how much health we have.
Look at how many healing items we have.
We're gonna get a nice what was that, 7?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. We're also gonna get a huge PP boost soon.
Yeah.
When we get 25,000 kills.
Boom. Safe room key. Nice.
And there's also a zombie tag in here. And another key.
Yeah.
Damn. It's a decked out safe house.
You
know what? You looked up a thing. I'm gonna look up an interesting thing.
Alright, I like interesting things. I didn't even finish reading that list yet. Guess we'll save it for another time. Oh my God.
And I thought of something that could be really fucking interesting.
Okay.
I hope that this describes them and not just names them. Okay, good. So, I looked up 10 bizarre psychology experiments that completely cross the line.
Ooh, nice.
This
sounds very unethical.
This is from onlinepsychologydegrees.org. And let's go. So the first one they have here is the Milgram Experiment. Yale University social psychology professor Stanley Milgram embarked on his now infamous series of experiments in 1961. Prompted by the trial of high-ranking Nazi and Holocaust coordinator Adolf Eichmann, Milgram wished to assess whether people really would carry out acts that clashed with their conscience.
We're a police officer now.
If so directed by an authority. Oh, I know this one! I could just tell you about it.
Okay.
Without all the fucking mumbo-jumbo. So basically, they took a bunch of people, and they were like, alright, you people are cops, you people are criminals. Those are your roles.
Oh, I remember.
And then the people that were deemed cops got horribly abusive. Because they just had that power, even though they're not. Neither of them were. And it literally got to the point where they were beating the shit out of each other and even raping each other.
Whoa. That's crazy.
Yeah. I want to see what they talk about. Alright, so the roles of the experimenter are authority-figure, teacher, and learner. After that, the teacher, who was separated from the learner and told to comply with the experimenter, would attempt to tutor the learner in sets of word pairs. The penalty for wrong answers by the learner was shocking in more ways than one, as they pretended to receive painful and increasingly strong jolts of electricity that the teacher thought they were delivering. Oh! Okay. Oh, that's cool. That's funny. Alright, so in this one, the one I was talking about was what the Nazis did, I think, or something like that. So Milgram wished to assess whether people would really carry out acts that clashed with their conscience, if so directed by an authority figure. For each test, Milgram lined up 3 people who were split into the roles of experimenter, or authority figure, teacher, and learner. And the learner was actually an actor. So, the teacher, who was separated from the learner and told to comply with the experimenter, would attempt to tutor the learner in sets of word pairs. The penalty for wrong answers by the learner was shocking in more ways than one, as they pretended to receive painful and increasingly strong jolts of electricity that the teacher thought they were delivering. Even though no real shocks were inflicted, the ethics of the experiment came under close scrutiny owing to the severe psychological stress used on its volunteer subjects. So basically, they would inflict shocks that weren't actually happening, but they thought were happening.
Yeah.
Alright, the Little Albert experiment. This happened in 1920.
Okay.
Things were different in 1920. Back then, you could take a healthy baby and scare it silly in the name of science.
Yep.
Which is exactly what American psychologist John B. Watson did at Johns Hopkins University. Interested to learn if he would be able to condition a child to fear something ordinary, if coupled with something else that he supposed triggered inborn fear. Oh, I've heard about this one too. Watson borrowed 8-month-old baby Albert for an experiment with seemingly dubious ethics. First, Watson introduced the child to a white rat. Observing that it didn't scare Albert, Watson then reintroduced the rat, only this time together with a sudden loud noise. Naturally, the noise frightened Albert. Watson then deliberately got Albert to associate the rat with the noise, until the baby couldn't even see the rat without bursting into tears. Essentially, the psychologist gave Albert a pretty unpleasant phobia. Moreover, Watson went on to make the infant distressed when seeing a rabbit, a dog, and even the furry white beard of Santa Claus. By the end of the experiment, Albert might as well have been traumatized for life. That's fucked up.
Yeah, that one's insane.
Like, no shit, you're gonna make fears out of association. Who the fuck doesn't know that? And why do it on a baby? You could just do it on an adult. It works with them too, I'm sure. You know? This is the one I was talking about. The Stanford prison experiment. In August 1971, Stanford University...
The Nut Blaster?
Yeah! Jimmy Nut Blast! Jizz Isaac Nut Blast. Anyway.
Nut Blaster.
So, to test the theory that conflict and the ill treatment involving prisoners and guards is chiefly down to individual personality traits, Zimbardo and his team set up a simulated prison in the Stanford Psychology Building and gave 24 volunteers...
Hold on. I'm sorry. Just hold on a second.
You just want to look at the nut
What the cock fuck is this?
Yes.
What
please.
on fucking earth?
It's a
this?
gun.
Oh my god.
Oh,
and it's on my fucking head.
Christ. How does he even control it? It even plays the Nutcracker.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Don't touch the Nutcracker!
Bitch.
Jerry, get me the lock cutter.
Alright, so continuing with this. So 24 volunteers were given the roles of either prisoner and guard. The participants were then dressed according to their assigned roles, with Zimbardo handing himself the part of superintendent. While Zimbardo had steered the guards towards creating a sense of powerlessness among the mock prisoners, what happened was pretty disturbing. Around 4 of the dozen guards became actively sadistic. Prisoners were stripped and humiliated, left in unsanitary conditions, and forced to sleep on concrete floors. One was shut in a cupboard. Zimbardo himself was so immersed in his role that he didn't notice the severity of what was going on. After 6 days, his girlfriend's protest persuaded him to halt the experiment, but not before at least 5 of the prisoners had suffered emotional trauma. Psychology can be fucking terrible.
That's insane that people can just stoop to those levels, like...
Just because they were given a role.
Yeah.
Alright, so, monkey drug trials. While their findings may have shed light on the psychological aspect of drug addiction, 3 researchers at the University of Michigan Medical School arguably completely overstepped the mark in 1969 by getting by getting macaque monkeys hooked on illegal substances. G.A. Deneau, T. Yanagita, and M.H. Sievers injected the unwitting primates with drugs including cocaine, amphetamines, morphine, and alcohol. Why? In order to see if the animals would then go on to freely administer doses of the psychoactive and, in some cases, potentially deadly substances themselves. Many of the monkeys did, which the researchers claimed established a link between drug abuse and psychological dependence. Still, given the fact that the conclusions cannot necessarily be applied to humans, the experiment may have had questionable scientific value. Moreover, even if a link was determined, the method was quite possibly unethical and undoubtedly cruel, especially since some of the monkeys became a danger to themselves and died.
Yeah.
Why monkeys?
That one's fucked up. The poor monkeys.
Yeah.
Oh well, at least it's not with humans.
Next up, we got the Bobo doll experiment. I have no idea what this is, actually. Or at least I don't think I do. In the early 1960s, Stanford University psychologist Albert Bandura attempted to demonstrate that behavior, in this case violent behavior, can be learned through observation of reward and punishment.
Okay.
To do this, he acquired 72 nursery-age children together with a large inflatable toy known as a Bobo doll. He then made a subset of the children watch an adult violently beating and verbally abusing the toy for around 10 minutes. Alarmingly, Bandura found that one out of the 24 children who witnessed this display, in many cases, the behavior was imitated. Left alone in the room with the Bobo doll once the adult had gone, the children became verbally and physically aggressive towards the doll, attacking it with an intensity arguably frightening to see in one so young. In 1963, Bandura carried out another Bobo doll experiment that yielded similar results. Nevertheless, the work has since come under fire on ethical grounds, seeing as its subjects were basically trained to act aggressively, with possible longer-term consequences.
Mm.
So they basically just train children to be violent towards this doll.
Interesting.
For no absolute reason.
Yeah, no apparent reason.
Because if they see an adult doing a thing, they're going to want to imitate it because they think that's the right thing to do.
Exactly.
They have no other point of reference.
It's all just imitation.
Yeah. Ooh, this one sounds fun. Also, I'm calling it right now that it might not be number one, but I'm going to say it's going to be number one. The monster experiments are going to be in here, which I'll tell you about if it's on here. If not, I'll just tell you about it anyway. So, number 5. Homosexual aversion therapy. Aversion therapy to cure homosexuality was once a prominent subject of research at various universities. A study detailing attempts at treating a group of 43 homosexual men was published in the British Medical Journal in 1967. The study recounted researchers M.J. McCulloch and M.P. Feldman's experiments in aversion therapy at Manchester's UK's Crumpsall Hospital. The researchers' volunteers were shown slides of men that were told that they have to keep looking. The slides of men that they were told to keep looking at for as long as they considered it appealing. After 8 seconds of such a slideshow being shown, however, the test subjects were given an electric shock. Slides showing women were also presented, and the volunteers were able to look at them without any punishment involved. Although the researchers suggested that the trials had some success in curing their participants, in 1994 the American Psychological Association deemed homosexual aversion therapy dangerous and ineffective. You can't just Clockwork Orange that shit.
It sounds horrible. It sounds like it would just make people just despise men.
Yeah.
Not just despise homosexuality.
Number 4. The third wave. How is the Holocaust allowed to happen? It's one of history's burning questions. And when Ron Jones, a teacher at Palo Alto's Cubberley High School, was struggling to answer it for his sophomore students in 1967, he resolved to show them instead. On the first day of his experiment, Jones created an authoritarian atmosphere in his class, positioning himself as a sort of supreme leader. But as the week progressed, Jones' one-man brand of fascism turned into a school-wide club. Students came up with their own insignia and adopted a Nazi-style salute. They were taught to firmly obey Jones' commands and become anti-democratic to the core, even informing on one another. Jones' new ideology, dubbed the Third Wave, spread like wildfire. By the 4th day, the teacher was concerned that the Nazi-like movement he'd unleashed was getting out of hand, and he brought the experiment to a halt. On the 5th day, he told the students that they had invoked a similar feeling of supremacy to that of the German people under the Nazi regime. Thankfully, there were no repercussions. I mean, a good teaching device and a good cautionary tale.
Yeah, that's insane.
That was like this one time, it was, I think it was in my AP World History class. They were like, who would you rather have for president? I'm going to describe like two people. It's like someone who was faithful to his wife, was an upstanding citizen, and basically just imagine those two things. Or someone who smoked weed, was known to be a little racist, and, I don't know, didn't even have good hygiene. They're like, which would you rather have? Which would you pick? Obviously the one that sounds like a good citizen.
Yeah.
Well, the first one described Adolf Hitler, and the second one described George Washington.
Nice.
And the only reason you say racist is because he owned slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least someone owned slaves that were president. Like, a lot of them did.
Yeah.
That was just at the time.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. UCLA schizophrenia medication experiment.
Ooh, I think I might have heard of this one. But go ahead, and then, of course, if it isn't what I'm thinking of, then I'll tell you what I'm thinking of.
Alright. From 1983, psychologist Keith H. and psychiatrist Michael Gitlin from the UCLA Medical Center commenced a now controversial study into the mental processes of schizophrenia. Specifically, they were looking into the ways in which sufferers of the mental disorder relapse and were trying to find out if there were any predictors of psychosis. To achieve this, they had schizophrenics from a group of hundreds involved in the program taken off their medication. Such medication is not without its nasty side effects, and the research may hold important findings about the condition. Nevertheless, the experiment has been criticized for not sufficiently protecting the patients in the event of schizophrenic symptoms returning, nor did it clearly determine the point at which the patient should be treated again. What is more is that this had tragic consequences in 1991, when former program participant Antonio Lamadrid killed himself by jumping from 9 floors up, despite having been open about his suicidal state of mind and supposedly under the study's watch. So it was just a sloppy experiment. Is that what you were thinking of?
No, I was thinking of one where they took like hardcore schizophrenics and people that suffered from like hardcore post-traumatic stress disorder, and they basically started giving them small doses of LSD.
Oh, I've heard of that too.
And it helped them so much. It helped them so much. And then I also heard about this story that my coworker was telling me about this woman who came out about the way that she was feeling. She's basically like this woman, married, has like, I want to say 4 kids, works a job. She wanted to fucking... She literally wanted to kill her family. Mm-hmm. She wanted to kill her children. She wanted to stab her husband to death. She was not a happy camper. And she basically started taking low doses of LSD, and she's saying that it prevented her from becoming a killer. It prevented her from killing her family.
Huh. Odd. Roaring thunder. The next one coming up is the one that I was talking about, the Monster Study.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Appropriately branded the Monster Study by its contemporary psychologist Dr. Wendell Johnson's speech therapy experiment was at first kept a secret in case it damaged his professional reputation.
And wait, hold on one second. Before you continue,
Mm-hmm.
we've upgraded our clip size for our guns a few times.
Yeah.
This thing has a magazine of 96 rounds.
Oh my goodness.
That's absurd.
That is absurd. Anyways, so the University of Iowa's Johnson drafted in graduate student Mary Tudor to carry out the 1939 experiment for her master's thesis, whilst Johnson himself supervised. 22 orphan children, 10 of whom had issues with stuttering, were put into 2 groups, each containing a mix of those with and without speech disorders. One of the groups was given positive, encouraging feedback about their verbal communication, while the other was utterly disparaged for their sometimes non-existent speech problems. The findings were recorded. This 6-month study had a major impact even on those who had no prior talking difficulties. making some insecure and withdrawn. In 2007, half a dozen of the former subjects were given a large payout by the state of Iowa for what they had endured, with the claimants reporting lifelong psychological and emotional scars. So basically, they did like a speech therapy thing, and they told children who didn't have speech disorders that they did, and because of that, they developed them.
Wow.
Like, they were told that they were studying, and they were berated for it. And then, they developed the stutter. And it got to the point where some of the children just were afraid to speak because they didn't want to become a stutterer.
Damn.
So they just didn't talk.
Oh. Why is it called the monster experiment?
Because it's so highly regarded as one of the worst experiments ever. It's a really famous, horrible psychological study.
Interesting.
The number one, David Weimer. Canadian David Weimer's life was changed drastically on account of one Johns Hopkins University professor. After a botched circumcision procedure... I've heard of this. After a botched circumcision procedure left Weimer with disfiguring genital damage at 6 months old. His parents took him to be seen by John Money, a professor of medical psychology and pediatrics who advocated the theory of gender neutrality, arguing that gender identity is first and foremost learned socially from a young age. Money suggested that although Reiner's penis could not be repaired, he could and should undergo sex reassignment surgery and be raised as a female. In 1967, Weimer began the treatment that would turn him into Brenda. However, despite further visits to Money over the next 10 years, Weimer was never really able to identify himself as a female and lived as a male from the age of 14. He would go on to have treatment to undo the sex reassignment, but the ongoing experiment had prompted extreme depression in him, an underlying factor that contributed to his 2004 suicide. John Money, meanwhile, was mired in controversy.
Damn.
Yeah. Instead of just fucking leaving his penis mangled, they were just like, make him a girl!
That's insane. That really is just insane. Oh my god.
Yeah. Which is why you should let transgenders change their gender. The end.
Just let the frogs be gay.
Let the frogs be gay! And just to reiterate, because I don't want to get sued, that was 10 bizarre psychology experiments that completely crossed the line on onlinepsychologydegrees.org. If there was an author name here, I would love to fucking say it. Maybe it's at the bottom. No. Well, whoever wrote this article, you're a good dude. You got some good ones. Some that I didn't even hear of. Oh, boy.
That was a good one. It's insane, like, how the human mind works, honestly. It really is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's one,
I'm in love with this combo weapon, dude.
It looks great.
No, it's literally just fucking Blanca from Street Fighter, but look at this crap.
Yeah,
like you strike the ground. This is my favorite, is the jump. Woo!
Yeah, like fucking Sonic.
Whee! I'm gonna do the drop dash.
There's one like horror story. It's not like a story in the way that it's fictional. It's like it actually happened.
Okay.
That like it terrifies me like to the core. There's this man that killed his family, like his entire family, his wife, his young children, his toddler. He beat them to death.
Okay.
In his sleep.
Oh. Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Right?
That must have been a hard mystery to solve.
Yeah, I'll fucking say.
Well, he probably woke up covered in blood, but...
Yeah. I couldn't fucking imagine waking up and seeing that I killed my whole family.
That doesn't even sound real, dude. That's just insane.
It actually happened.
Maybe he was just saying he fell asleep and actually just violently murdered them.
That's also a possibility. I know a bunch of like real life horror stories because there was a while where me and Jess just watched this YouTuber named Rob Dyke, who does he has a show on YouTube called Seriously Strange where he talks about that kind of shit, like just real shit that happened, and it's fucking terrifying. There's one mental disorder that's really strange. It's called exploding head syndrome.
Okay.
Not as ridiculous as it sounds, obviously.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
So, basically, what exploding head syndrome is that randomly throughout your life, whether it's sleeping, actually, I think it's more likely you hear it when you're about to go unconscious, whether it's sleeping or for any other reason, you just hear the sound of an explosion in your head that isn't there. And it's really loud, really scary, really sudden, and it has caused people to lose sleep. Because they just, every time they try to fall asleep, they just hear poof.
Wow. That's pretty fucked.
Yep. And you want to know what the most fucked up part is? Doctors don't know what caused it.
Mm-hmm.
It just happens, they don't know why.
Damn. Is it like a proven thing?
It's a very rare disorder, but it exists. People have admitted to having it, but it's not very common.
Interesting.
How much time do we have?
IDK. Shrug.
I'm sure I could find a good thing to read.
Yeah, like strange medical disorder.
Yeah.
Like the tree man. The man who his body just kept on developing fucking scar tissue, and eventually, like, his limbs...
Yeah, I've
like
seen
tree
that guy.
bark.
Here. This one only has 5, so it should take us to the end of the episode. So we have 5 of the world's weirdest mental disorders. This is on allthatisinteresting.com, and it's written by Richard Stockton. So let's get down to them.
Let's get down to brass
Walking
tacks.
corpse syndrome. Quick, are you now or have you ever been dead? If you answered yes, congratulations. You might have Cotard syndrome or walking corpse syndrome. Or you're actually dead, in which case, sorry for disturbing you. People with Cotard syndrome believe that they have either died or been mutilated in some improbable manner, such as having all of their blood drained or their organs removed. Yet other patients show delusions of immortality. The condition is most common among schizophrenics and people who have suffered head trauma. In one famous case, a young man who hit his head in a motorcycle accident in Scotland left the hospital convinced he was dead from either septicemia or AIDS. Shortly afterward, when his mother took him to South Africa, he came to believe that his soul had been sent to hell. It just sounds like weird delusions.
Yeah, that sounds like horrible delusions.
Alright, next up we got Fragoli delusion. If you enjoy meeting new people every day and then accusing them of impersonating the people you love most and following you around, then Fragoli delusion is just the thing for you. People with this disorder are irrationally convinced that strangers have taken the place of their friends and family and are wearing cunning disguises that only look like the faces they've known all their lives. Researchers, in between shrugging and admitting that it's really weird, speculate that the condition might have a basis in an organic brain disease, adding that it is the dominant psychotic theme that determines the content of the syndrome, which is how science avoids using words like crazy. Again, that just sounds like severe paranoia.
Mm-hmm. Debilitating paranoia.
Yeah. I've heard of that. I've heard of that disorder before. I forgot what it was called, though. Then we have the cannibal disease. That sounds fun.
Cool.
Remember that crack in the introduction about not being a cannibal? We didn't read the introduction, but whatever. This is where it pays off. Wendigo psychosis is marked by an all but irresistible craving for human flesh, which is perfectly normal if you are, say, a mountain lion, but a little weird if you're human. Wendigo is another one of those maddeningly culture-specific disorders that almost exclusively strikes populations of northern Algonquin people, largely in the Great Lakes region. So, in the United States. In these cultures, the Wendigo is a supernatural creature with a taste for human flesh. Symptoms usually begin in winter as an exaggerated form of cabin fever and involve, ironically, an initial loss of appetite, nausea, and vomiting. Eventually, the victim comes to believe that he has become a Wendigo, will crave human flesh, and will sometimes attempt suicide to keep from infecting others.
Suckmaster 3000!
Oh! What's it take to make it?
Gears and a vacuum.
Nice. That sounds super easy. Yeah, we're going with the Suckmaster!
How many charges we got? Oh, it's just throwable, so I got no idea.
Oh yeah, it was the kind of thing where you throw it and you can just pick it back up.
Oh yeah.
Until it dies. Alright, moving on. The first written description of the phenomenon was penned in 1722, and the number of cases since then has been so small that some researchers suggest that the disorder is actually more myth than reality. Then we got abolomania. Think back to when you clicked the link to this article. Those were the days, huh? Now, why did you click on this article? How? While you're at it, try to remember what you were thinking when you decided to put down the gun that you were cleaning with a Confederate flag in the first place. Why did you choose not to wear pants to work today? The short answer is that your brain is equipped with a deliberative mechanism that helps you sift through actions and prioritize the things you want to do.
Hey, look, it's Rick's outfit. He's the character from...
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the third game.
Third game.
Yeah, I know what he looks like. Anyway, the short answer is that your brain is equipped with a deliberative mechanism that helps you sift through actions and prioritize the things you want to do. Abolomania is what happens when that mechanism is disabled or defective. People with abolomania report being paralyzed with indecision over every minor decision they have to make. Normal daily activities such as going for a walk, getting some work done, or deciding which politician to troll today become impossibly difficult to prioritize.
There it is.
What's interesting about abolomania is that the affected person is otherwise completely normal. Sufferers know that they have a problem with pathological indecision, yet they will still agonize at length over every little thing. People with the condition just can't stop obsessively working up elaborate arguments in favor of, say, eating chicken piccata and then tossing them all out to build their case for fried fish. That is, of course, before they almost talked themselves back into that chicken again. Treatment for victims of the disorder consists mainly of ruling out depression and then gently encouraging them to knock it off already. Clinical research is no doubt hampered by the difficulty in scheduling visits with patients. So basically, it's just horrible, crippling indecision, it seems.
It seems like you're so busy, like, trying to decide something that you kind of forget a lot of other important information, though.
It's more of just like if they need to make a decision, they really just can't. Because they just don't know what to do. Just horrible indecision. Stendhal Syndrome. I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. Stendhal Syndrome. It's normal to feel a bit overwhelmed in the presence of fine art or otherwise emotionally powerful surroundings. What isn't so common, however, is a racing pulse, fainting, and hallucinations. These are the signs of Stendhal Syndrome. The condition is triggered by different stimuli in different people and tends to strike in various yet specific places. Jerusalem Syndrome affects very religious people who visit the Holy Land. Jerusalem police and medical professionals have special procedures for coping with tourists who suddenly go off the rails and start proclaiming themselves to be the Messiah, or trespassing on various holy sites and preaching to crowds. Florence Syndrome is the Stendhal subset that afflicted French author Marie-Henri Beyle, aka Stendhal himself. The close proximity to staggering artistic genius overwhelmed him, and he wrote later about how his visit to the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, Italy, left him with a fluttering heart and vertigo. Hundreds of people have responded in a similar manner, often while visiting Michelangelo's David. Paris Syndrome
It's so stunningly beautiful that they just can't cope with what they're seeing.
Yep. Paris Syndrome is the oddest of the lot,
Just like it.
if only because it exclusively affects Japanese people who visit Paris as tourists. It seems to be triggered by the gigantic letdown of the real-world Paris as opposed to that of their idealized expectations. Paris Syndrome usually involves some kind of emotional breakdown or even acute psychosis. It's a big enough issue that the Japanese embassy actually maintains a hotline for sufferers.
Wow.
And that's the article. Again, that's 5 of the world's weirdest mental disorders by Richard Stockton.
That reminds me of
allthatisinteresting.com.
When I was in high school, my psychology teacher was telling me about a disorder that he had, and also a disorder that I saw on an episode of, I think it was Law and Order, or either like CSI or something like that, where it's essentially like sometimes it is a hormonal imbalance, sometimes it's stress induced, but it is essentially a disorder where you don't you basically are unable of feeling full. You can eat and eat and eat, but you don't feel full. So essentially you feel hungry all the time. And sometimes it's because you lack a certain chemical in your brain that normally tells your body, you know... Can I pick this thing up?
No, it's... I saw it before.
Yeah, you essentially just never feel full. And it's fucking torture for some people.
There's the fucking one mental disorder that scares me with people. Is that it's a mental disorder, well, it's actually a neurological disorder, where they literally just can't feel pain.
That's awesome, though!
No, but, like, it gets bad because, like...
They don't know if they're hurt. Like,
they don't,
injured.
because even though they can't feel pain, their body will still take damage.
Yeah, of course.
So, like...
I think I saw an episode of House about someone that had that.
There was one case where this little girl literally had her hand on a radiator and her hand was, like, burning the fuck up. Like, 3rd-degree burns, and she just didn't feel it.
Yeah.
I saw, I don't know what show I was watching, but it was a show where it was a little girl that had the neurological disorder. And literally they were scared for her life because she just doesn't know what pain is.
Yeah,
and doesn't understand
really
that her body takes damage.
Yeah. No need to really, like,
They have to
about
constantly
that kind of stuff.
watch her.
Yeah.
Because she'll just end up unintentionally hurting herself because she doesn't know any different. There's nothing telling her, ow, I better stay away from that.
Yeah, I was watching an episode of House where a woman had that, and essentially she was just talking about, like, how incredibly annoying it is to live with it. She has to, like, wake up every morning and make sure that her fucking corneas aren't scratched. She has to, like, look in the mirror and make sure that everything's okay. And stuff like that. And, like, you know, every few minutes of the day, she has to constantly check every single part of her body to make sure everything looks okay. Game designer outfit?
That's what I was thinking, too. Alright.
Hey, look, I'm a game designer! Yeah, I have a satchel!
With the word designs in
Designs. These are my designs. Watch out, you motherfuckers. These are my designs. This is my design.
it. Did you hear him?
No.
Frank, when you put on the Captain Commando costume, he said, "It is I, Frank West!" See, put it on again, see if he says it again. I didn't say it this time.
Yeah.
He didn't speak.
He has nothing to say.
He's like, "It is I, Frank West!" We should probably end this episode. It's probably high time.
Yeah.
Well, let's get in that safe room first, and then we'll end it.
Okay.
Because it's, like, in this house.
Shit, Arthur's helmet.
Oh, shit!
Man, if this was Dead Rising 2, I'd be fucking jumping for joy.
Hell yeah.
And then finally, just a Blanca mask. So, we have, Blanca, of course. And then we have Blanca. And then, you can never forget about Blanca.
Yep.
It's funny to do that shit in an enclosed space. Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Hello? Oh, of course.
Oh.
We're in the kitchen. Someone's in the kitchen with... Oh my god, is that Santa with a fucking...
Fire trap Santa!
Ho, ho, ho.
Green giant. Vega Claw. Dope. And we're gonna see you guys in the next episode. I'm Bottles.
This is G.
See you later!
Bitches.